Hi everyone. So my name is Alexander Plavinski. I'm a front-end developer or software engineer at InVision since 2016. I organized the React meetup here in Düsseldorf, so come join us. And I also do have a Twitter handle at Sleaze, but you might not do yourself a favor if you follow me. So just take care of it. So what's this gonna talk be about? It's more about evolving design systems and component libraries during the time. We started thinking and developing components, I don't say several years ago, and I'll just try to explain how it went. So during this development, basically many things can happen. Like the technology that you use can change. The technical paradigms can change. The industry standards on design come and go, or some things change, or anything like this. And also people with different functions, something like UI designers, UX people, developers, also join the company and bring their knowledge with them. But don't worry, it's not going to be a philosophical talk about this. It's more of a hands-on thing, because let's meet our exemplary hero. We'll start with a button. Let's call him Benjamin because it's a button. Right now our button looks like this, more or less. It's one of the primary buttons that you see, but it hasn't been always this case. And let's do a time travel to 2011. When we first started our paradigm shift, one of the earlier ones, we started doing web development with Ruby on Rails, which basically just changed the way we develop software. It's more of a monolith approach that we did. It was really cool back in those days, and brought some new developments in them. And we started using Bootstrap with it. But you probably have seen Bootstrap too at some time in your life. So it's those things that pops up. And one of the first iterations of the button has been looks something like this. If you see, on this short video, I pressed it, and there's some kind of an animation that you press the button inside. But things went on and on and on, and at some point in our life, we developed a different application that has been developed by another team. A button looked like this. It apparently looked just a bit different. It has a different border, and there is no pressing animation in it anymore. And this is like weird, right? If you compare those together, there's already an inconsistency about the design. Those tiny elements, something like a button, already looks different on different applications, and we wanted to fix that. So we created something like Plexus. It was our first approach to document things. It was mainly driven by developers and not that many other people with different functions. So there were not that many UI people or UX people involved. And the whole documentation approach was more inspired by Bootstrap. So we basically documented something like a CSS framework. Let's make a big time travel to 2016. And 2016 has been a completely different time. There has been a paradigm shift where people started doing development on component-based libraries, something like React, but like we used React. And also during 2016, InVision has hired a lot of different new folks who have been doing interface design and also user experience designers and also software engineers. And it's also the time I joined the company. So by working, since you have all these new people together, working together in cross-functional teams, it came naturally that while we work together, sitting next to each other and explaining our experiences and what we like and what we dislike, we automatically raise the bar higher, what actually is good to design, and how you can share it, and how you can share your work together between different teams. So we realized that the design, the Plexus, wasn't actually good enough anymore. The documentations that we had that were purely development driven didn't really fit into this world of cross-functional teams. And also, they were coming in this component-based thinking with a different paradigm behind it. It somehow felt like there were some missing puzzles in it. We were thinking hard how to solve it, and this is how it can be. Iris is our new component library, I would say. It's not an abbreviation, how some people think. It's more of a, it's a double meaning. It's more of the thing that you have in your eyes to be able to see, but it's also the name of the Greek goddess of rainbows, and the one who brings colors and stuff. And this is what it currently looks like. It's our component library. I have hidden the URL because I was too afraid to share things, but you can ask me later. And this is, you can see we have quite a few components here. And we did some work since 2016. There are some problems still, something like uncovered challenges we are exploring and solving. Something like InVision doesn't have only one product, but at least two, I would say. And they do have some legacy stuff, something like those old Ruby on Rails applications, and some of them are marketing sites. And this is a component-based approach, so we still haven't solved everything, but we have learned a whole lot of things while developing them. One of the benefits was that we actually right now use one single button component. So something like that has happened before, that a button looks different in two apps, doesn't happen anymore. We learned a whole lot of how to work together in a cross-functional way. So something like a UI designer and a developer sitting next to each other, actually talking to each other, and not just throwing around designs and implementations and telling that the other work sucks. And one of the main things that I want to explain is that it actually helped us to work together better, because with this current approach, we managed to bring together designers and user experience designers and developers together. So it was more of a buy-in from this component library. And what we learned is that once with a component library, you can't just make it work for only a small group of people. It just will not be used. What works for us is we try to bring more and more people into this topic, ask for their opinion, and try to iterate it. And you need to iterate it on a component library, otherwise it will die, or not just be used and become obsolete. So the main aspect is to iterate it on every point without fear and without regret that something that you have worked on dearly might be replaced or anything like this. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Fedor. First of all, thank you for a good presentation. That's yeah, for those who understand the matter, it's really impressive what you do. And first question is, how do you decide when you need to change?
It's more about, it's a people problem, I would say. I wouldn't say like people are the problem, but this problem. But you need to buy in from people. When you get the requirements of people and they have some certain aspects and certain expertise in their field, we just try to talk to them. Like I've heard people saying, "Oh, we can't really use this; it doesn't work for us." You just go them and talk to them. Like, why doesn't it work? What are you trying to achieve? How can we make it work? It's exactly like this. There's no easy way. It's more like the people problem, and they're meeting their expectations and somehow working together is where the magic is done.
Do you do it continuously, or you have some milestones where you say you sit together once in a month to discuss?
We probably do whenever I see something or whenever I just mention, I just spam our Slack channel tirelessly and tell people, and it's more of I try to approach to them and make it really easy to approach for them to approach us.
Okay. And another question, because the project begins with business requirements, and then you go down to features and split across the teams. How do you involve the people from business perspective in your cross-functional team? Do they present?
For us, it was somehow made clear, like our product managers are important, but we also are important, so we just convince them that for real work that has some value even years ahead, because we don't do throwaway projects, like our projects are there to stay there for years. We explain the benefits of it.
Are they permanent members of cross-functional teams, or they are like round robin, 1 week with one team, 1 week with
No, they're more permanent. They're more permanent.
Okay. That's all. That's all from my side. Thank you very much.
There was a question in the back there.
Okay, it's kind of the same but different approach, I hope. You said you get feedback. From whom do you get feedback? Do you have some kind of end user usability testing, or is it more like, hey, the feedback comes from a product owner or from a salesperson or something like that?
There's something like we still work together day by day. So you just come up and talk, and there is also lunch breaks, and there is also anything. We don't have any like official meetings where we get signed off this thing. It's more of we work together, we try to improve it, we try to work on our accessibility guidelines and try to implement them. It's more of an iterative work. Just as I said, iteration is what counts, because there's, in my opinion, no way to make it right the first time. And especially there's never going to be a right, because companies and the technology behind it always shifts in any way.
As I understand it, you developed this mainly for InVision products. Do you have accessibility in mind when you design your, let's call it, pattern library?
Yes, we do. There are some also some automatical tests that are run that you can do, but we also implement accessibility guidelines and check up on them and see how it works. It's like an ongoing process. I can probably tell you more about it afterwards.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I have a small stack of quick questions, but they're all related. Number one is this this kind of like, I know I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there some like not invented here syndrome in there? Are there other, if you were now forced to use external sources to build your component library, could you do that, or do they fall short of your requirements? And if so, where?
Absolutely, there is. Like, absolutely that there isn't. Some of the easier ones where we had this special design requirements, or our people, like it's just easy to come up with their own idea, something like an on button. We invented it here. But some of the more complicated components, something like a date picker that has a whole drop down and you select dates, we just use the library, and we integrate it in our code base and just make something like of an abstraction and make use of it and publish an own component out of it.
Yeah, are there component libraries or UI frameworks or UX toolkits and design frameworks that you looked into, sort of like perhaps material design from Google or similar things, where you said, okay, this is a viable candidate, but we're not going to use it because?
Yes, there were, but we didn't go to the whole. Let's integrate this whole pattern library someone else is doing and just use some minor parts. We just more went for the emergent pattern, where we just used or looked for a solution for the current problem that we have. and abstracted it all to the storybook afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot.
No more questions?
Anybody else? What are you hiding there?
I have worked with component libraries and patternlet and so on, and what I have experienced was that there was a point where those components weren't maintainable anymore. So the more complex it becomes, the much more effort it made to keep it up to date or to modify a module or component. So talking about a component, about a button is quite easy, but if you stitch it together to a more complex component that has more components in it, it gets really complex. So how would you draw a line, or what would you say, how complex can you draw a component?
In my opinion, it's we struggled also with that, and we still struggle sometimes. What we find out is you need to just listen to yourself and have this gut feeling, oh, this is complicated. What can we do different? And there are lots of great ideas in the community about composability of really primitive stuff. So you might not be able to, or you might not need to make really complex component. Just make your application be able to use these primitives that this component consists of and just make them composable so you can reuse them in any way special. This way you can avoid all these complexity traps. This is also what we try to do. Sometimes we fail, but you know, it's iterative work. That's how we do. Okay, thank you everyone.